The void was silent, deep, endless, and cruel. The Emperor's mercy drifted through the Imperium, its colossal frame glowing faintly beneath the shimmering blue haze of its Gellerfield. For weeks, the ship had glided through that cursed space, ferrying Imperial cargo and 1,000 human souls across the dark reaches of the galaxy. But no one truly sleeps in the warp. Lieutenant Varen knew that better than most. Every night his dreams filled with whispers, words he couldn't understand, voices that slithered through his thoughts like oil. The ship's chaplain told him it was nothing, that the warp often tests faith. But tonight, the voices weren't waiting for sleep. They were already here. The first sign came as a flicker in the lights, then another, then the entire corridor trembled with a low, guttural hum that rolled through the walls like thunder. Varen bolted upright in his bunk, sweat slick on his skin. Then came the sound. A single, shrieking alarm. The one no crewman ever wants to hear while inside the warp. "Gellerfield instability detected," blared the Vox. "Integrity at 70% and dropping." The walls shuddered. The air grew thick, heavy like breathing through wet cloth. Somewhere down the corridor, someone screamed. Varen grabbed his last pistol, yanked on his jacket, and ran into the hall. The ship's metal bulkheads pulsed faintly as if breathing. Every step he took echoed like a heartbeat beneath his boots. The flickering lumen strips along the ceiling sparked, casting long, twisting shadows that seemed to move when he wasn't looking. Over the ship's intercom, the captain's voice barked through the static. "All crew to their stations. Engineering, restore the Gellerfield immediately. This is not a drill." But the sound that followed wasn't static. It was whispering. Soft at first, then louder. Dozens of voices whispering his name. "Varen, Varen, you shouldn't have come here." His blood ran cold. He stumbled toward the command deck, stepping over a dead servitor whose mechanical limbs twitched on the floor. Its eyes, and once dull lenses, and now glowed faintly red. Its mouth opened and closed like it was trying to speak, and then it did. "It sees you." The words came out in 3 voices at once, one male, one female, and one that didn't sound human at all. The Gellerfield was collapsing. By the time Varen reached the bridge, chaos had erupted. Crewmen scrambled over flickering consoles, their faces bathed in the unnatural red of emergency lights. Someone was reciting the litany of protection. Another was vomiting blood onto the floor. The ship's astropath, blind eyes bleeding, was screaming words that didn't belong to any known language. "The veil is torn," he shrieked. "They know us. They smell our fear." Captain Raiden stood firm in the center of the bridge, gripping his bolt pistol with white knuckles. "Get the field back online," he roared. "Now." "Trying, sir," shouted the tech priest, sparks flying from the console. "But something's—" He didn't finish. The deck beneath him opened like a mouth, swallowing him whole in a flash of light and shrieking metal. Everyone froze. The hole sealed itself shut. The metal hissed as if breathing. Then came the laughter. It echoed through the Vox speakers, through the walls, through their minds, a chorus of warped, inhuman laughter that crawled beneath the skin. "Emperor, protect us," whispered Varen. A ripple passed through the floor. The crew screamed as the walls began to melt. Panels ran like liquid, forming shapes that looked almost human. Faces pressed out from the metal, stretching, writhing, screaming. And from one of those twisted faces, a voice spoke clearly. "You opened the door. Now we can see you." The captain fired into the wall. The bolt round exploded, spraying molten metal across the deck. But it didn't stop the faces. More appeared. One of them looked like his wife. Another looked like Varen. The navigator's chamber flared with light deep below deck, a burst of psychic energy shaking the ship to its core. The astropath collapsed, his final words barely audible. She looked too far. She saw it. The Emperor's mercy lurched violently, throwing Varen to the ground. Outside the observation windows, the warp churned, colors and lights twisting together in impossible shapes. The ship's protective field flickered again, and this time it didn't come back. The darkness that followed wasn't absence. It was alive. Varen felt something slide into his mind, cold, ancient, curious. It wasn't just watching him. It was inside him. He tried to scream, but his voice wasn't his anymore. When the lights finally returned, nothing looked the same. The bridge was a cathedral of madness. Blood floated in the air like mist. The Vox officer's body hung suspended, veins stretching out of his skin to connect with the console. The tech priest's voice played endlessly through the comms, even though his body was gone. And standing in the center of it all was Captain Raiden, whispering a prayer through trembling lips. "Faith will hold," he said, eyes wide and unblinking.
Faith will.
He froze, his breath caught. Slowly his body began to twist, his head turning too far, his mouth widening until it tore at the corners. Something inside him was smiling. The captain's voice deepened, layered with something else. "Faith brought you here. Faith feeds us." He raised his pistol and fired. The blast painted the bridge walls with blood. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Varen stood alone amid the ruin, shaking uncontrollably. Outside the viewport, the warp shimmered, vast and endless, like an ocean made of nightmares. He stared into it and saw things moving, watching. And when he blinked, the reflection in the glass wasn't his. It smiled at him and whispered, "Welcome to forever." The ship was silent now. Too silent. "Lieutenant?" Varen moved through the dark corridors of the Emperor's Mercy with slow, cautious steps, his last pistol drawn, his breath loud in his helmet. Every sound made him twitch. The ship creaked and groaned like it was alive, every metallic moan sounding almost human. He passed the remains of crewmates he once laughed with, now fused to the walls. Their faces stretched into eternal screams. Some still moved, their mouths opening and closing without sound, as if trying to breathe air that wasn't there. The smell of blood and oil mixed with something else, something ancient, burning at the edges of his thoughts. The Geller field was gone. That meant the ship was naked before the high warp, exposed to the madness that dwelled beyond reality. No one survived that. No one ever did. And yet he was still here. Maybe that was the cruelest trick of all. Varen stopped when he reached the navigator's chamber. The door was half melted, carved open by some unseen force. He hesitated, whispering the Emperor's name under his breath before stepping through. The air inside was thick and hot. The floor pulsed faintly beneath his boots like standing on a beating heart. And then he saw her. Lady Elthyra Voss, the ship's navigator. Her thin frame was slumped in her gilded throne, her white robe soaked in blood. But she wasn't dead. Her chest rose and fell with shallow, trembling breaths. Her veil, the sacred cloth covering the third eye on her forehead, was torn. "Lieutenant Varen," she croaked, her voice dry and broken. "You shouldn't be here." "What happened?" he demanded, though his voice cracked halfway through.
"The field, the captain?"
Her laughter was soft, hollow. "The captain is gone. We all are. The warp took him, took them all. It's hungry, Varn. It's alive." She turned her head toward him, her blind eyes staring through him. "I tried to find the Emperor's light. I opened my mind. But what I saw wasn't his light. It was something else." Varen felt a chill run through his spine. "What did you see?" Her lips trembled. "Eyes," she whispered. "Endless eyes watching. A sea of souls screaming for eternity. And one of them looked back." She shuddered violently, clutching her temples. "It spoke to me, Varen. It said our ship doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to it." Before he could respond, the walls around them rippled. The lights dimmed until they were drowning in shadow. A low hum filled the chamber, deep and guttural, vibrating through his bones. Then came the voice. It wasn't heard through the ears, and it was inside the mind, massive, cold, amused. "She opened the door for you, little spark. Now you may see what lies beyond." Varen dropped to his knees, clutching his head. Visions exploded behind his eyes. Entire worlds of torment. Rivers of burning souls. Creatures that existed only to suffer and feed. He screamed until his voice broke. When he looked up, Elthyra was standing. But she wasn't herself anymore. Her third eye was open now, glowing like a sun that shouldn't exist. Her skin pulsed with veins of crimson light, her body shaking as if every bone wanted to crawl out. She raised her hand and the air bent around it. "The warp showed me the truth," she said, her voice no longer her own. "There is no Emperor here. No light, only the tide." "Close your eye," Varen begged. "You'll damn us all." She smiled, and for a moment her voice softened, the human part of her trying to break through. "I already have." Then the light burst from her forehead, ripping the chamber apart. When Varen woke up, he was somewhere else. The navigator's chamber was gone. The ship's architecture had changed. The walls now curved like bone. The floors glistened like wet flesh. The air hummed softly, whispering secrets he couldn't ignore. He tried to stand, but his legs trembled. His reflection in the mirrored wall was distorted. Eyes too dark, skin too pale. His own veins pulsed faintly with light. The warp was touching him. "Lieutenant?" He spun around, last pistol raised. A crewman, Ensign Rukal, stumbled toward him. His face was pale, his uniform torn. "Sir," he gasped, "engineering's gone. The machine spirits are silent. The ship's core, it's alive." "What do you mean alive?" Rukal trembled. "It's beating, sir. Like a heart. And it's growing." Before Varen could respond, the lights flickered. A sound came from the ceiling, a wet, dragging sound. Something fell. It hit the ground with a splatter. A mass of limbs and eyes fused together, wearing what was once a human face. It twitched, whispering the Emperor's name through a dozen mouths. Rukal screamed and fired. The creature shrieked, its voice echoing through the corridor. But for every piece that fell, two more grew from it, flesh multiplying like a nightmare given form. "Run!" Varen shouted, pulling Rukal down the hall. They sprinted through the corridor, pursued by the wet slaps of crawling things behind them. The walls pulsed faster, red veins glowing brighter. The ship was changing. The Emperor's Mercy wasn't a ship anymore. It was something new, something born from the warp. They burst through the blast doors and sealed them shut. Both men collapsed against the wall, gasping. "What's happening to us?" Rukal whispered. Varen didn't answer. He stared at the floor, trembling hands gripping his weapon. "We're already dead," he said quietly. "We just haven't realized it yet." Through the metal door, they heard the whispering begin again. A chorus of soft voices chanting in unison. "The Emperor's mercy endures." Rukal's eyes widened. "That's the captain's voice." Varen froze. And then, from the shadows of the corridor, a shape began to form. Human but wrong. Tall and stretched, bones bending in unnatural ways. Its face was pale, its eyes bottomless voids. "Lieutenant Varen," it said in the captain's voice. "You survived." "Stay back," Varen warned, aiming his pistol. "Why fear what you are becoming?" The creature smiled. "The warp has chosen us. The ship lives because we live." Its smile widened, splitting the face down the middle. "Come with me, Varen, let go of your fear. The warp is not death. It's transformation." He fired. The blast tore through the creature's chest, but it didn't fall. It laughed. Its blood hissed on the floor, burning holes through the metal. "You can't kill what's already been remade." The walls shook. The lights flickered again. The whispers became a roar. Varen turned and ran, leaving the creature behind. Though its laughter followed him through every corridor, hours or maybe days passed. There was no time in the warp. Varen sat alone in the observation deck, staring out into the Immersive. The sea of madness swirled endlessly before him, colors shifting, shapes moving in patterns that defied logic. He saw the souls of his crew out there screaming, reaching toward him. Some begged for help. Others laughed. And deep within the churning sea he saw eyes, hundreds, thousands, watching. He pressed his hand to the glass and whispered, "Emperor, save us." But the reflection that looked back wasn't his anymore. It smiled and whispered, "There is no Emperor here." The air was cold now, unnaturally cold. Frost laced the walls, though they still pulsed faintly, like veins trying to keep a dying heart alive. Lieutenant Varen had stopped trying to count time. The ship no longer had hours or days, just stretches of silence between screams. He didn't even know if those screams were real anymore. Sometimes they came from the walls, sometimes from inside his head. He had found a fragment of the ship's bridge, what was left of it at least. The once grand command center of the Emperor's Mercy was now a twisted cathedral of metal and flesh. The consoles had merged into organic shapes. The deck sprouted bone-like ridges, and the captain's throne. It still stood in the center, glowing faintly in the dark. He approached slowly, his weapon trembling in his hand. The throne was no longer empty. Captain Raiden sat there, or what was left of him. His eyes were black pits. His skin stretched thin over a body that seemed to breathe on its own. He turned his head as Varen entered, the sound of snapping joints echoing through the chamber. "Lieutenant," the captain said in a calm, almost gentle tone. "You look weary." Varen raised his pistol. "You're not him." The captain smiled. "Of course I am. I am the sum of every soul on this ship. The Emperor's Mercy is no longer metal and wire, Varen. It's life. It's unity. Don't you feel it?" Varen's hand shook. "You let them die. You let it in." "I didn't let it in. the captain said, standing slowly. It was already here. The warp doesn't invade, Varen, it reveals. It shows us what we truly are when the Emperor stops watching. He stepped closer, his footsteps wet on the flesh-metal floor. And you, my dear Lieutenant, you've survived because it likes you. You've been chosen. Chosen for what? Varen spat. The captain leaned close enough for Varen to see the faint movement beneath his skin, as though something else lived inside him. To remember, he whispered. To carry the mercy of the warp beyond its sea. And then he reached out a hand. Varen fired. The bolt round ripped through the captain's chest, blowing him backward into the throne. The explosion of flesh and smoke filled the room. For a moment, Varen thought it was over, but it wasn't. The walls began to shake. The ship groaned. Blood, or something like it, began to pour from the cracks in the floor, spreading across the deck like veins of living red. The air filled with laughter, and the Vox systems sparked to life on their own. Through the static, a chorus of voices spoke in unison. The Emperor's mercy endures. Varen ran. He fled through corridor after corridor, the ship now pulsing like a living thing. Each passage twisted behind him, rearranging itself. Rooms that once led to barracks now opened into halls of bone. Doors he'd just closed appeared ahead of him again. The warp was folding reality in on itself. He turned a corner and froze. A figure stood at the far end of the hall. Pale. Still. The navigator. Lady Althira Voss, but her third eye now burned like a sun. Her body hovered inches above the floor, her hair floating in unseen currents. The walls around her warped and bent, drawn toward her like metal toward a magnet. Varen, she said softly. Her voice echoed from everywhere. You can't run from it. He raised his weapon again, though his arms felt weak. I can end it. I can destroy the ship. Althira tilted her head, smiling sadly. Destroy the ship? You are the ship, Varen. He blinked. What? Every soul that died, every thought, every scream, and it all merged. You've been breathing the warp too long. You've seen too much. Don't you feel it? Varen felt his heartbeat. But it wasn't coming from his chest. It came from the walls. From the floor. From everywhere. He dropped the pistol. Althira stepped closer, her eyes glowing brighter. It's already too late for you. The mercy has chosen a voice. And it's yours. Then without another word she vanished, dissolving into light and sound. Varen collapsed to his knees. His body shook, his mind unraveling. He could feel the ship moving, not through space but through something else. He heard the cries of 1,000 souls inside him, all whispering one phrase, we endure. He stumbled to the engineering deck. If there was still a way to end this, it would be there. The ship's plasma core, and if it still existed, could vaporize everything. He would make sure nothing escaped the warp. The deck was unrecognizable. The great engine had become a heart, massive and alive, beating in rhythm with the pulse of the ship. Veins of glowing energy ran from it through the walls. Every beat sent a shiver through reality itself. Varen approached slowly, clutching a detonation charge in his trembling hands. He heard the captain's voice again, faint, echoing through the hum of the heart. You think destruction is escape? Foolish child. The warp doesn't end. It consumes. Varen ignored it. He climbed the ladder to the control dais and slammed. The charge against the pulsating core. Emperor! Forgive us, he whispered. He pressed the trigger. Light swallowed everything. For a moment there was peace. Then nothing. Centuries later, a patrol ship from the Imperial Navy picked up a faint distress signal near the edge of Segmentum Obscurus. The transmission was old, ancient by their standards. The name code read Emperor's Mercy. The ship's signature showed it had been lost in the warp for over 300 years. The boarding team arrived expecting a wreck. Instead, they found a vessel that looked pristine, untouched by time. Its hull shimmered faintly, its light still glowing softly in the void. Inside, everything was clean, quiet, and eerily still, until they reached the bridge. There, seated in the captain's throne, was a man in a worn officer's uniform. His eyes were black, his smile wrong. Welcome, he said calmly. You found us. The sergeant raised his weapon. Identify yourself. The man tilted his head. I am Lieutenant Varen of the Emperor's Mercy. We've been waiting. Before anyone could react, the lights dimmed, and the walls began to move. The screams that followed didn't make it to the Vox recorders. The ship's beacon vanished moments later. Only one fragment of audio survived, looping endlessly in the data logs. The Emperor's mercy endures. And somewhere deep in the warp, the ship drifted on, alive, aware, and always waiting for the next soul foolish enough to listen to its call. If the darkness of the warp sent chills down your spine, then don't go alone. Smash that like button, share this nightmare with a friend, and subscribe for more terrifying tales from the Warhammer universe. Turn on notifications, because the next horror might already be waiting for you.